Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we're going to be talking about the end of the group stage of the T20 World Cup. India are out. Afghanistan couldn't do them the solid that they needed, which means the two semi-finals will be England v New Zealand on Wednesday and Pakistan v Australia on Thursday. We'll be covering the final three matches of the groups. We'll be talking about those semi-finals. We'll be discussing where it all went wrong for India. And our YouTube viewers will be wondering why Max Rowe-Brown looks like Ross Legg. How are you doing, Ross?
We got the names wrong again.
He hasn't. Do you know what it is? He's not here. He's on holiday. He's on a sun lounger in Lanzarote, and he does our graphics. He's our graphic designer. He hasn't done one for you and I. He's just like, well, if I'm not on the show, I guess it's not. I don't care.
Show, is it?
Fuck the production values.
Yeah. Oh, that's classic Max. That is really, isn't it? Really is classic Max. I'm suffering with pretty much COVID-like symptoms, and there he is, sun lounging and putting his feet up. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Right. I'm Jack. I didn't mention that, but my name is right. Ross, do you want to tell the listeners the messages, and then we'll get on with the cricket? We'll start with India, I think, probably.
Yep, if you're watching this video, if you're like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us at The Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram, follow us on any podcast platform that you're also listening to us on. We love all of our listeners equally. We are sponsored by Woodstock Cricket. Use code TTP25 for 25% off. And Jack, I saw you were pushing Patreon this morning. On Twitter.
We've got Patreon, patreon.com/The Cricket Pod. It doesn't work if you're in India, which is annoying for us. It's annoying for any cricket podcast, to be honest, isn't it? If the main cricket audience can't get on the donation site. But if you aren't in India, patreon.com/The Cricket Pod. It's the best way to support the show. The number one thing you can do is that. If that isn't your bag, then share it with a mate. That also works. That helps. That helps to spread the word. We've had also, Ross, 4 reviews come through on iTunes in the last week.
Oh,
5 stars. So go and do that. Oh, just how great we were. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. That is very nice.
We can read them out later or something.
Yeah. Oh no, I've got them here. Jacob G95, best cricket podcast out there. Jacob, thank you very much. What else we got? We've got really appreciate this podcast, especially if you stay in the UK. Main broadcasters basically just cover England and minimal coverage of other teams. Keep it up, please. That's from Ashari90, and I'll read one more. Insightful and funny analysis from 3 guys who clearly know a lot about cricket. Well, Ajith's not wrong here, is he? And they're passionate about the game. One of them apparently averages over 60 in a North East London competition.
So this guy right here.
There we go.
Right here. I think there were a couple of others, but we'll find them. We'll read them out at some point. Let's do India first. Ross, have you got a summary, or am I doing the summaries?
I kind of thought out of these 3 games, it was almost it probably doesn't really need to do it, do we? Like each of them was pretty damp squibs.
I'll say what happened. Namibia batted first. They got 132, which is pretty good going, for Namibia. India bowled well. The Indian spinners were obviously a bit too good for the Namibian batters, but when against the quicks, they weren't too bad. In response, India, in Virat Kohli's final game as captain, they didn't even let him bat. A joke. Scored 136 for 1. Kell Rahul was good again. Rohit Sharma, what did he get? 56 for 3, I think he was, over that innings. And Sky, 25 not out. The great man left sitting in his helmet until the very end, which was a shame, wasn't it, Ross? What do you want to discuss in this match?
Well, Virat won a toss, so that's good. Yeah. I mean, we've already got a super chat from Anaru Balasub. I'm not even going to try to say that. I'll embarrass myself whenever I try to say that. It's a very generous 5 SGD, whatever that is. But is it unfair to say if two coin tosses went differently, the Indian narrative would be super different?
I'll tell you what. For the other games, we basically with the other games with the eliminated teams, we've basically just talked about why they were eliminated and stuff. So we might as well do that instead of going into the details too much. India v Namibia. The thing I'd say is Namibia played a bit better than I thought they would. They respectable defeat to a pretty good India side for Namibia. KL batted pretty well. But yeah, that's a good place to start. I think
I
that's a
think
really good question to start off with, isn't it? Those two tosses, obviously, India, they start off against Pakistan and New Zealand. What
Mhm.
what happens? What's the butterfly effect if Kohli wins one of those?
Shastri's still in the job. He manages to stay there. Kohli reverses his decision to give up the captaincy. He's gone in for the World Cup, Jack. It's all a big pivot to the right hand side, I reckon, of destiny. Um, but I also think that India, to looking at the reasons I've written down here, I
Okay.
think they were going to lose regardless of that first game, regardless of the toss. I think they would have lost.
Okay,
I think they were.
what's your reasoning for this? Because I don't know if I'd be I don't know if I'd be that strong.
I think they were complacent in this. I think what we said at the start was that they do start a little bit slowly in competitions, and that kind of underdog tag kind of gets gets them kind of pumping. But I think one, Kohli resigning for all the competition, I think that was just silly. There was too much pressure on. I think they were carrying an injured Hardik Pandya, which wasn't worth the risk versus reward. And I just think that first game against Pakistan was just far better suited for it.
Um, right. So I don't know if I agree with that. I think the reason India have gone out, I think it's a combination of three things. One, I think bad luck. I genuinely do think that had they won the toss in one of those two matches, they would have had a serious chance of winning. I think they're set up to be a better chasing side. They've got like 17 anchors in the top three, haven't they? Um, you you need, and I think sometimes with those kind of guys, it does help if the tempo has been set. So if they know they have to score at 8 and over from ball one, I think sometimes that just helps clear the mind a little bit. And I can't see a batting lineup of of those boys, Kohli and Surya Kumar Yadav and Rohit Sharma and Kell Rahul and Pant. I can't see them not chasing 150, and I don't think Pakistan would have got more than 150. So or New Zealand even. I don't think either of those teams would have batted India out of the game. So I think they would have had a really good chance of chasing.
Mm.
I also think they've been unlucky with things like Surya Kumar Yadav. I think they might have been a bit unlucky the way the tournament went. So they sort of they were out of it before it started in a way, weren't they? And they might have liked to pump Scotland in the first match just for a little warm up. I think so. If we say luck's part one, I think they got their strategy wrong in a couple of matches. I think particularly that Pakistan one. I think they batted too slowly. And I think had they put 170 on the board, they might have won that match. And I think they had the batting line up to put 170 on the board, even though they were unlucky in the power play and lost wickets. Or even though that Shaheen Shah Afridi bowled well in the power play and they lost wickets. Whichever way you want to look at that particular situation, I think they probably should have got 160 plus, and
Yeah.
Kohli didn't bat aggressively enough. Let's just be really clear there. And then the final thing is they've been on tour for 9 months. Like it's at some point people are going to get tired out, aren't they? We might have seen a little bit of that as well. Maybe for the first match, the mental edge that you need to succeed at the top level, to make those decisions, to get 165 when you have a bad start in the power play. Maybe you don't even have a bad start in the power play if your mind's in the game. These boys, they went away in early March to play the IPL properly in a bubble when COVID was a complete disaster, worldwide disaster. They left that. They went to England straight away, didn't they, to play the World Test Championship final. After that, I think they had 2 weeks off. That's when Pujara went to Peppa Pig Land. They played the summer, and then they left from the summer. They went straight to the UAE, played the IPL. Then from the end of the IPL to the beginning of this tournament was a week and a half. And now, 9 days later, they've got to come play New Zealand. It's ridiculous. The scheduling is terrible. So I think it's a combination of those things. Probably quite tired. Probably been a bit unlucky. Probably didn't have a great strategy going in.
Yeah. I agree that it's a combination of those things, but I also think that luck at the highest level, like it's not that bad luck when you just get beaten by better teams. So I thought they picked the wrong 11 here. I think they need a different selection strategy, a different approach to T20 cricket that we've talked about before. I don't think Virat fits into this side unless he's opening the batting. Now he's resigning as captain. Does he get into this 11? I don't know. That's probably a big question.
No, the answer is no. That's if your job your only job is to pick the best 11 Indian players for a T20, then Kohli isn't in the team.
Yeah, and I also think that their bowling lineup, you kind of say that they could well have restricted Pakistan to kind of 150. They could have restricted New Zealand to kind of the same. But I don't think picking Bhuvi was the right decision. I think they've got really high quality spinners in this side, and actually they didn't utilise Ashwin, Jadeja, and Chakravarti. Even picking Chahar today, I just don't think they managed to get the concoction of the spin bowling unit on right. That was one of their big strengths going into this, and they managed to take what was a winning hand and turn it into a losing one, I think.
Yeah,
Anyway.
well, that's definitely true. I mean, India's talent pool, after probably England, which I think have a more well-rounded team than India, but think back to those 5 T20s we covered earlier in the year. India won, didn't they? So it's quite marginal between those two teams. I think the Indian talent pool is potentially as good as England's, and I think you're right. They should have found 11 players to get through this group. Pakistan played really well. Pakistan have won 5 out of 5. We shouldn't shy away from the fact that probably the best team over the 5 matches has won this group, and potentially we're underrated Pakistan the whole time, and they're better than India. Maybe they'll be better than England. We'll see, or we might see in a week's time. But yeah, New Zealand aren't great.
We're going to say that, and then it rolled against them.
But India should be beating New Zealand, and another bit of bad luck. They're in this group with 2 competent teams. They could be playing in the group of fun with Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, and aging Dave Warner still rocking it.
I'm looking forward to everyone going, yeah, David Warner's back. He's back. Is it 2 good scores against 2 shit bowling lineups? Wait until he does it against a proper bowling lineup, and then we'll talk. What I didn't like was people actually questioning the commitment or the passion for playing for India. I thought that was a little bit misplaced. I think when people start bringing up how much money they earn playing IPL cricket, etc., and how much they get paid there, I don't think there's ever any doubt of people actually turning up and playing for their country, especially one like India. So I thought that was pretty poor, if I'm perfectly honest. But that's not something we can control.
I think you're right. I think the thing is, top level T20 cricket, there are some quite fine margins. The difference between India and Pakistan, I think India are probably a better team than Pakistan. I think the India team they put out is probably a better team than Pakistan. But if you give Pakistan the advantage of winning the toss, it's much, much closer. Maybe Pakistan are more likely to win in that scenario. Over 10 matches, I'd say India probably wins 6 out of 10 against Pakistan. But even up those odds by letting Pakistan bowl second, and it's much closer. Against New Zealand, probably 6 or 7 out of 10, mate. I'd say India. They're both very losable matches. You've lost two matches where you were maybe had a 40% chance of losing. That happens. Yeah. That happens a lot. So yeah, fine margins. If there's another World Cup next year, I'm sure they'll be back. I think they get straight into the Super 12 stage, don't they?
Well, that's how it works.
just about. Great. Anything else? We should talk about Namibia, shouldn't we?
Yeah, I thought today that I thought they put up a pretty decent thing. I wanted to talk about Kell Rahul just a little bit because it's not a show for us if we don't do him. Did you see his cartoon-esque faceplant into the turf? That
was the best thing he did all day. He hit some big sixes. He smashed Namibia. They didn't know where to bowl to him. But the faceplant dive trying to take a catch that he didn't need to take. He could have just run and cut the ball off. There was like 2 balls left in the innings. The smart thing to do would have been to cut the boundary off.
Yeah.
Instead
he's gone for glory and tried to catch it with his mouth. He's like, ah! And literally just got a face full of dirt. And afterwards he's just like, why did I do that?
Yeah. It really hurt his ego on that one.
Oh no! But I thought Namibia with the bat they couldn't really get going, right? The bowling lineup of this Indian team was solid, right? They couldn't really get Bumrah away, which kind of much better teams can't do. Ashwin was on point, Jadeja was on point, and both offering a very different kind of approach, right? Ashwin was kind of going through his big bag of tricks, whilst Jadeja was just like, I'm just going to be the good left arm bowler that I actually am. And I thought they didn't really have an answer for it.
No.
And getting 130 it was never ever going to be enough. But they got what 37 off the last 4 overs, which is okay.
I think 130 is a pretty good score if you're Namibia here.
Yeah.
You're not going to beat India, are you? Let's be honest. You got 130. That's more than a run of ball. Most of you could have done Scotland. That's just a decent performance. This is about as good as it could have gone with the bat, I think.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I mean, you saw like how bad their fielding was, right? Rohit Sharma had more lives than a cat. It was unbelievable. That drop at short fine leg. We were chatting, weren't we, on text saying like we would have been embarrassed if somebody in our amateur team dropped that. It was so bad, and that is just the difference, right? At this elite level.
Yeah, it sure is. But yeah, I think Namibia have got a lot to build on from this tournament. I like a few of their players. Trumpelman's decent opening bowler. I think they've got to stop using him later. I think that doesn't work. David Visa's had a great tournament. Here's a question: why is everyone in Namibia a left arm fast bowler?
Or there's a really shit wrist spinner. That Lofty Eaton is he's pants. Like that, unfortunately.
Well,
in the dirt.
Look, 4 overs, no wickets, 31. We went for 31 runs today in amongst all the carnage. That's 8 runs better than Mohammad Shami. He's had a day out. That's good. It's only 1 run worse than Rahul Chahar, the Indian leg spinner.
Yeah, he didn't deal with the occasion very well, did he, old Chahar? Like it looked like it got to him a little bit.
I thought he was having a laugh. He was bowling through and over.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is, I know he does this sometimes, but it wasn't good. He was just sort of winging it in halfway down. I haven't got anything else to say about this. I watched the whole thing, but I haven't really got any insight. Sorry, have you got anything else you want to add?
I thought the cartoon face plant was brilliant. I thought the spin bowling was the thing that won it for India, other than the just immense level of talent that was above everything else. Yeah. I thought it was a little bit like Kohli not going into bat in his last game. I thought was a little bit strange as him being captain. I can always see about putting the team first, and he said in the interview afterwards, Sky didn't really get a fair crack, and he wanted to give him kind of that experience, which, if genuine, is a nice thing to do, right? But if I'm captain of my country and this is my last game, like, I think I would have gone out there and
it's not his last game, is it? He's going to be in
the captain, T20 captain.
In T20s, yeah. Of the 3 formats, T20 captain is by far the least glamorous, I think.
I don't know. It's probably the most popular form of the game now. So
I think the street cred you get for T20 captain, it's just not that impressive, is it? Everyone gets a go at being T20 captain at some point. I think it's the easy one to. Here's the real question. I think will he play T20 cricket for India at the next World Cup?
No, I don't think he will.
No, I agree. I think they'll move on, or he'll.
Yeah, unless he has Virat Kohli. What was it, 2017 when he hit like 900 odd IPL runs or whatever it was? If he's that Kohli, get him in the side. But if it's the Kohli that we've seen for the last 3 years. Absolutely not. I'm afraid, mate. You go and focus on Test cricket, and you can play ODI cricket because you're going to be great at those, and you can play for the next 15 years if you need to. T20 cricket, though, I think it's all she wrote.
Cool. Right, we're going to move on from this game. So we want to do 10 minutes on it, and we've managed to do 15, which is 5 minutes too long. Yesterday, we'll do the afternoon game first because that was completely pointless. Pakistan played against Scotland, and it was nice because at the end of the game, Pakistan and Scotland had some cake together. That's all I've got. Anything else you want to add? Pakistan won by 72 runs. That's the other.
Yeah, it's their biggest victory of margin, isn't it? In T20s. I thought Babar Azam winning the toss was a good thing, and then choosing to bat, was a good thing. Kind of put themselves under a small bit of pressure as they're still coming up against the Scotland bowling lineup. I think Pakistan's approach needs to be elevated a little bit more. I think they were pretty pedestrian through the power play. I don't mind the strategy of opting to build the foundation and then risk it having a couple of middle order hitters when you're playing against Scotland or Namibia. But against the big boys, even Australia, you need to have a strong power play, I think, because that's where the teams can hurt you. So I think that's one area of Pakistan's game that they just need to be a little bit smarter at, I think.
Yeah, Yeah, I think you might be right. I do think their power play approach is quite. It's a bit out of sync with what everybody else is doing, but what it does mean is that Rizwan and Baba are quite often set for the whole of the rest of the game, and they if that happens, they are able to catch up. Normally, I wouldn't recommend playing this way. I think it's a stupid way to play. But I think in this tournament, in these conditions, with the bowlers that Pakistan have, there is some merit to taking the approach that they are taking. It does mean you're very unlikely to get a really, really good score, but it means you'll quite often get a good one, or a potentially match-winning one. I don't know.
Well, they've done all right? They've got 180 plus.
They've won 5 out of 5, so they've done all right. Yeah. They got 185 though because they were playing Scotland, and Hafiz and mainly Shoaib Malik went absolutely ballistic, didn't they? 54 of 18 balls, six sixes.
Pretty good. Yeah, strike rate of 300. You'd be like, yeah,
you can have as much cake as you want after that, can't you? They're good. Like Pakistan are a really properly good team. They're probably in the power rankings particularly now that England have lost Roy and Mills. They're number 1, aren't they? Whoever beats Pakistan, I think, wins this World Cup.
Yeah, that's probably fair. But I think there's also a piece here where we also need to take into consideration that Scotland did get it wrong in this game. Like Shoaib Malik should not be hitting 54 of 18 balls. They got the matchups wrong against him. They bowled spin at the death. He strikes at like 170 at the death against spin. And they go, here you go, Colin Greaves, or Chris Greaves, whatever his name is. Bowls it halfway down and it gets pumped into a marn. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, here's what I'd say about this though. I think, and I don't know about you. I think this is sort of a long point, but bear with me.
Okay,
I think this game is sort of a really good example of how this tournament has actually felt a bit like a World Cup instead of like a closed shop cricket tournament. So if you compare it to the 2019 World Cup, like undoubtedly the quality in that tournament, the 2019 World Cup here, what I'm talking about here, was better. The best 10 teams in the world playing each other once in a round robin. You get some super high quality cricket. The stakes are massive. The tension's high for every match. You see, it's like all of the problems with bilateral cricket go out the window, and you get like why the sport's really good. But it never felt like a World Cup, did it? I mean, we were here. We live here. I went to games. It never really felt like a World Cup because we see all these teams all the time. The narratives were the same. The narratives that you'd have in a bilateral series were the same. The cricket was just better. I think at this World Cup, although the quality of the cricket has sometimes been a bit poorer and some of the decision making has sometimes been a bit poorer because you're seeing players that aren't used to playing at this elite level, I do feel like the inclusion of teams like Scotland, like the inclusion of teams like Namibia, in this stage of the tournament and having the prelims as well has made it feel a bit more inclusive and has actually led to some more interesting stories and some narrative and just moments like Pakistan and Scotland sharing some cake after the match, or was it Matt Cross and Kohli having a chat about batting, some things that don't normally happen in cricket, and I actually appreciate it. And I know that Pakistan scored 189 and Scotland limping to 117 for 6 led to 4 or 5 of the most pointless overs ever bowled in the history of cricket. And I'm including all the way down to like village, small fucking middle of nowheresville versus large middle of fucking nowheresville on a Sunday afternoon playing a timed game. The second half of this innings, or the last 5 overs, were completely pointless. But it has felt to me like this tournament has succeeded where other cricket tournaments maybe haven't, in that it feels like it's captured the interest of a wider group of countries than otherwise would be invested in the game. And part of that is, and part of what we'll get hopefully out of this is the next time Scotland get to this position, and hopefully there isn't, and hopefully there is a next time. I think there will be a next time. They're an okay team. Hopefully when they get to that position again, they think about it a little bit more and they've got another plan, or maybe some of their bowlers are a bit better. They go away, they work on some skills, they go to the 100, they speak with some of the top English players, some of the overseas players, and they're 10% better. So when they turn up next time, they don't let Shoaib Malik hit 54 off 18. They let him get 36. Maybe he goes ballistic, but not like, not completely exponential in terms of the runs he's scoring.
Classic Pakistan if Shoaib Malik's playing in the next World Cup.
It would be, yeah. And maybe they're chasing 170, and maybe they run it close. Maybe they get up to 150. That's where they want to be. They want to be thinking like, how do we get to Afghanistan? How do we get to that level?
But Afghanistan still struggled with that, right? They still struggle with a plan B, and I think we can kind of talk about that in a minute. And Afghanistan's rise in the last 10 years has been really good, but they're still going to make some mistakes. I think Afghanistan, we've talked about before, they just didn't have the depth of squad. I found it ridiculous that their old captain retired mid-tournament. And I think there was just some errors along the way, and I kind of think there's some good parallels that you can kind of draw in there, Jack, with what Scotland can do. And I agree that it's been quite an inclusive World Cup. Some of it's been a bit stupid. I mean, Akash has pointed in the chat around the West Indies retirement game, where it was just ridiculous. They didn't do themselves justice, I didn't think, in that game, but it is what it is.
Sono in a super chat saying, guys not getting picked for India in the next cricket team are trying to get Scottish citizenship for next year's World Cup. I think you'll see that happen a little bit more as well. There's a big Indian diaspora around the world. I think you'll see...
Rayadu, we've talked about Rayadu before on the show, haven't we? He was going to go and join the Ireland team.
I think you'll see a few players do that. There's a few places in the world that export cricketers at the moment. South Africa, Zimbabwe are probably the two main ones, aren't they? You've got Kiwis who are South African, English players who are South African, Irish, Dutch, English and Scottish players who are South African heritage anyway. Yeah. But I think you'll see a few Indians probably go down that route as well. I think there are a few playing for the USA side, aren't they? Anyway, anything else on these two games? On this game, we'll talk about.
I thought Richie Berrington batted really well. He was kind of a class above his colleagues, wasn't he? And I think Ahmad Wasim and Shadab Khan, their approach to bowling was quite interesting to see how they did it. And Pakistan used Ahmad Wasim a little bit differently this time as well. And you kind of saw this change. And they were talking about it on comms around. Now he's trying to bowl flatter and quicker in the power play, so people don't hit him over the top, and how he completely changed his style when he was bowling kind of with the field back. And I quite enjoyed them actually dissecting that for once. It wasn't just, oh, this guy's good at bowling. It was actually a proper, this is how this is changing. And it was a bit too much for Scotland. And I think there is a big difference, I think, as you see when England go and completely get battered in India, how you play spin, right? And I think this is the big challenge now around. There's going to be more and more high quality spinners. We've talked about with Dan Weston saying there's going to be more and more wrist spin kind of coming into these teams, and how people can actually show intent and actually take down these spinners is actually really important, because otherwise you're never going to be able to beat someone like India when you've got the likes of Ashwin, Chakravarti, Jadeja, or something like that.
Yeah, or to be honest, you're never going to be able to beat the likes of Afghanistan. I mean, like, ideally, I think what this World Cup is showing, hopefully, is that there are 4 or 5 teams that are on the fringes of being able to play in. So I think if we talk about the format of this tournament really briefly here, I think the format with the preliminary round and then the main tournament is the wrong format. I think it should be 16 teams, 4 groups of 4 from ball 1. But to do that, you need a few teams that can at least stand up and fight in a game with a major nation and create a little bit of jeopardy. Otherwise, what you're watching, you're just watching a procession, aren't you? And I think there are a few teams who are close-ish to being able to do this. So Scotland, maybe. Namibia, maybe. Ireland should have performed better than they did. They're an okay side, and maybe the Netherlands are as well a one. And if you can get that, then you can actually have a proper tournament and with some engaging games, and the narrative becomes less about cake and a little bit more about if Scotland had a real chance to turn over Pakistan here, which is definitely not what the narrative is. There was no chance of Scotland winning this match. There was literally no chance of that happening. So I think it's really encouraging for cricket around the world is sort of the general point. And if you are moving towards like an actual football World Cup style tournament, then you need some teams that can stand up and have competitive matches, even if it's only having competitive matches with the rung above. Now, at the moment, I think Scotland, as you're sort of saying here, because they can't play spin and stuff like that, they're not going to be competitive against Afghanistan. And
We were told they were good. We were told they were good against spin as well. But the spin you play at an associate nation level versus what you play against Afghanistan is a major difference, right? Mujibur Rahman and Rashid Khan are up here. Like, Rashid Khan's up here, but they're still like top tier. And yeah, I mean, George Munsey's reverse sweep's great to watch, but you saw him against Pakistan. He looked all at sea, didn't he?
Well, this is it. Yeah, you need to at least be able to survive it and score a run a ball off it, and then take down the rest of them. Which is exactly, you look at a good team. What did New Zealand do? And we'll get onto this match now. It segues in really nicely. What did New Zealand do to beat Afghanistan? They sort of knocked the spinners around a bit. I think one of them hit Rashid Khan towards the end when the game was sort of won. But they survived the spin. They knew the only way they were losing that match is if they lost 5 wickets in 8 overs against Mujib and Rashid Khan, and they were just like, that isn't going to happen. They were blocking him out at one point. There was like Naveen, Janat. They're not going to cause any problems to Williamson and Conway. And if you're like a tier down batter, they're probably not going to cause too many problems to you. And so they were just like, well, let's think this through. We'll go less than a run a ball off the spin if we have to, and we'll go 8 and over off the pacers. It was, I don't know. Have you got a summary for this one?
Yeah, well, I just thought, first and foremost, I thought Afghanistan's approach in this World Cup has been, against the teams they thought they could beat, was to bat first and then to suffocate. I thought they got it wrong here. I thought in this game they should have opted to chase first and actually put the Kiwis under a little bit of pressure, because I think they had the team to actually do that and chase it down. As they only got, was it 125? I think 124. It was only one of their batters got going, and they just didn't have any answer to the New Zealand kind of bowling lineup, really. Like Trent Boult and Adam Milne were just a class above for them. I mean, even Tim Southey, who's like the New Zealand's James Anderson playing in T20s, just like it just couldn't really get going at all against them. And I just thought that comes from a bit of experience. So you were talking about the Scotland kind of learning from their mistakes. They'll see that as a mistake. They should have had a different approach. So their lack of ability to adapt, I think, is what ultimately gave them a 2-3 record in the end. Because when you hit 125, when you hit less than 140, really, even 150, it's perfect for Kane Williamson to go at pretty much a run a ball and completely control the narrative of the game. They've got no pressure. Him and Devon Conway were striking at nearly 100, if that. They had no pressure to go, as you say, go after the spin bowlers, which was exactly what Afghanistan needed them to do. So I thought, they made a mistake there. They had the opportunity and they mucked it up.
Yeah, I mean, I think they mucked it up is maybe a bit strong. I think effectively New Zealand was just a better cricket team than Afghanistan. Me and Dan had a long debate about this, and Dan thought, I think Dan said that Afghanistan, he reckoned had a 40% chance of winning this, and I just don't think that's true, and I think we saw why. The step up, as you're saying there, between whoever they're playing at the level below and Trent Boult and Milne is huge. Like and Trent Boult and Milne aren't even A-list. We're not talking about Jasprit Bumrah and Mitchell Starc here. We're talking about 2 quite good bowlers, guys who'll probably be in the IPL next year, probably guys who deserve to be in the IPL next year and deserve to play most of the games, but not your global superstars. And they didn't really have an answer. They scored really slowly, and I think part of the reason they scored really slowly, to be honest, Ross, was that they could only concentrate on surviving. They knew they'd have a chance of catching up a bit against Ish Sodhi and Santner, where New Zealand are less strong, and they did catch up a little bit. They posted a score where they had more than a snowball's chance in hell of winning, but the damage was done up front by some players that they couldn't really cope with. But it's a good tournament for Afghanistan. I think they are. It's interesting. Where do you reckon they go? How do they get better? How do they get to a position where they're 36 for 2 at the end of that power play and they can take down the spinners and get 145 and maybe win?
I think here they missed the trick. I think they should have played more spin bowlers. I think they should have selected more. I think they should have tried to take advantage of the conditions in the UAE. I think they'll struggle when they go and play in Australia, for example, in that kind of world. I think they'll struggle playing T20 cricket in the UK. But if you're playing in the subcontinent, it could really work out for them that they kind of sit and invest in that approach. Dan says that they've got some good pace bowlers coming through, but there's a big difference to be growing up playing pace all the time and in that environment. And I think they need to load the deck in their favour for now. But
I don't know about that. I disagree. I think that's the route to them successfully qualifying for these tournaments, but that's also the route to being Bangladesh. Nobody wants to be Bangladesh, you know. What they need is 4 or 5 guys who, well, maybe not even 4 or 5 guys, probably 2 guys who aren't nailed on certain to get out to anyone who can bowl decent pace. They haven't got that. There's a huge difference between slugging some right arm pie chucker in the Middle East on a slow pitch and facing actual good bowling at a World Cup. And Afghanistan, they've got the bowling. I think you're right. Pick another spinner is what I would do. That's the first thing I would do. The pace seam bowling, not their strong suit. Lean into that strength for sure. But they've got the spin bowlers. They've got the teams to actually, I think, be a real handful if they can get 145 on the board quite regularly, and they can't because their batters are not well rounded.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
They've got that guy who scored about a bazillion runs against Ireland one time. And I said that's the difference. It's Azai. What did he got? Yeah. He kind of got bounced out by Trent Boult. Now that's not a good look.
Yeah, I agree, but I like their approach, right? They're not trying to sit around and survive. Fun. Yeah, I think I like the fact that they just said, you know what, we need to hit boundaries. That's the way we're going to win this. And they tried to play to their strengths. I think they got a little bit unlucky with injuries. I think their selection was slightly off. I think if is it Kayes Ahmed, if he was in the side, I think that makes a little bit of a difference. Yeah. And as I said, I thought it was an absolute travesty that their ex-captain decided to retire mid tournament. It completely spanner in the works. It was completely ridiculous.
And then they replaced him with a left arm finger spinner.
Yeah, they just like, right, okay, fine. Like that kind of stuff is always going to hamper you. But as you say, great value. And I mean, I thought they had a good tournament.
Yeah, I'm going to do some super chats, and I'm going to do our Patreon questions. Then we're going to do a little preview of the next 2 games. Right. Cool. So Sunil says a day will come when T20s will become T20 will become a format where only 4s and 6s will be counted, eliminating 1s, 2s, and 3s. Well, there will be more boundaries. I don't think they're going to eliminate 1s, 2s, and 3s though. That would be a surprise. I
think there'll be more. I think there'll be more boundaries purely in the fact that I think there will change net run rate, and I think it will be something to do with boundaries. On TMS the other day, they were saying, "Oh, it should be the amount of wickets you've lost." No,
oh God, imagine that.
All you'd get is 120. It's just like all these old numbers. Just like that's the opposite of what you want. You want a home run derby. You don't want Test cricket.
I don't know if you want a home run derby, but you definitely don't want people being 7 wickets down and then like, we don't want to lose.
Right, on the scale, on that scale of home run derby to Test cricket, where do you want T20 cricket to be? You want it? Where do you want it? You want it up here?
You're in the last quartile towards home run derby. Vic London says, question for later. So this is later. Do you think international quality is better than the IPL or vice versa? Is league cricket the future?
I think I've talked about this before. I think a lot of T20 cricket. International T20 cricket is of a lower standard than what you'd get in the IPL, but we don't see these teams play often enough, right? And I think that's the issue that you get some people who haven't really played international cricket, and it's just a bit like, okay, fine. I think franchise cricket quality will go up. The more money that goes into there, the more better coaching they get, the more analysts they get in, the higher the quality of players because they get developed more. So I think having tournaments like this every 2 years they try to have the T20 World Cup.
Yeah.
I think that's just only a good thing. And I think all quality will get dragged up.
I think the IPL is much better than this. I think them being played side by side on the same pitches makes that really obvious as well. And the reason for that is if you've got a bad team. If you're Chennai Super Kings going into this season, you're like, our spin's looking a bit iffy and we don't hit that many boundaries. What should we do about that? You go and buy Moeen Ali. Like, that's not an option. We were talking about Afghanistan not having anyone who can play pace. They can't go and get Quinton de Kock at the next auction. That's not something that they can't be like, we're going to upgrade Mohammad Shahzad here. That's what they're stuck with. Yeah. So that's what I think. Adam Dallamore on Patreon, and if you are a patron, we always ask your questions and always answer them as well. Asks thoughts on Mitch Santner. Why is he so highly rated / economical? He's not a big turner of the ball, and he only turns the ball one way. Seems like feast bowling. I don't know why teams don't target him, or do teams just respect that he may do their accounts for them? Well, one, he does look like an accountant.
He does.
That's we've talked about that before. I think what it is that Mitch Santner, if you watch the ball in the air, gets it to swing. So he swings the ball in and then spins it away. I don't know how he's doing this. There's a few bowlers a bit like this. He does what Mujeeb does, basically. He gets the seam in the right place, and it's not really swing, it's drift, I suppose, isn't it? As the seam rotates through the air, it sucks the ball in one direction. It sucks the ball into a right-handed batter's pads, and then if it hits the pitch, it doesn't have to spin loads. It just has to go a little bit or straighten, and it's tricky to play. I think Santner's decent. If I think he'll be a good cheap buy as like a backup guy or maybe an occasional guy for next year's IPL. What do you reckon, Ross?
Yeah, I think that's okay. I've always had the opinion that Mitchell Santner's really tall, and I always thought he's a good bowler because he gets a little bit of extra bounce there. I've just checked; he's 5'9". Like, he's not
No
that
way.
tall. Yeah,
He's
like
tall
Mitch
as shit,
Santner.
man. No,
Mitch
I've seen him live. He's tall.
He's
Or all the Kiwis are really short.
Well, Kay Williamson is. Wait, it is the land of Lord of the Rings, isn't it? Where's where all the hobbits are from. I think yeah, he's a very good. What's the word? He's a good squad player to have. I think.
Yeah.
I think we spoke about that. You need to, like, especially in franchise cricket, you need to have those people who come in and come out. I don't think teams rotate their squads actually that well in franchise cricket. I don't think they do it in international cricket at all well. But I think there is a bit to what you're saying there, Jack. I think he can be a useful addition, but it depends on the conditions.
Yes, it does. It does depend on the conditions. And then finally on Patreon, then we'll wrap up this show with a 10-minute summary of the semi-finals. It's been a bit longer than we hoped, but it always is. VJ says, "Hey Jack," and then in brackets Max and Ross. So I don't know. That's a little bit of a slight there, isn't it? That's a little sledge. I'm looking forward to it. 2 questions. How much do you think winning the toss has determined the results of the game? So answer that one first, Ross.
Yeah, it's been a big factor. I think the stats back it up as well. But I also think that teams have used it as an excuse to fail. Actually, I think there's it's too easy of a reason to hide behind for some. Let's be honest, some pretty atrocious first innings performances.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I think it demonstrates, again, that quality point about the IPL. Generally speaking, the higher the quality the game of T20 cricket, the less important the toss is, because the teams know what they're doing. What it has exposed, the toss in this tournament, is that some teams don't really know what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that's completely right. And what annoys me is when you've got teams who have a load of ex-players kind of in the hut with them. Like Bangladesh don't have that bad of a coaching lineup, yet Bangladesh's performances have been like this for the last few years, and it's just so how do we get the good coaches and the different approaches into the game? And it's a little bit frustrating at the moment for nations like that.
And then second question, and remember, we'll answer anything you send us on Patreon if you sign up. That's the main way to help us. I always find, not that this is a bad question, it's a fine question. I always find it hard to dissect raw bowler skills from performances they have on assisting tracks. Should we now consider, from all the results with teams bowling first and winning the most games, that bowlers who actually improve their skill sets the most in short formats, or is it just because of how the pitches are playing? So I think the general point there is are we seeing bowlers bowl well because of the pitches, or what? Or how do you assess a bowler? Just answer that bit, I think.
Well, let's take the IPL, right? Harshal for RCB took what, 30 wickets? Was it this IPL?
36, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, how many of those type bowlers have actually performed well in the World Cup or have been used in the World Cup? I think some people, it's obviously pitch related, but Rashid Khan goes all over the world and performs. Yeah. I think that if you put someone, if you've got that level of quality, and it comes back to what you were saying, right? Trent Boult and Adam Milne, they are good level bowlers. They're not elite level, but they are good level, and I think they would perform in pretty much any league that you put them in. But then there is the next rung down, who Yeah, will always be. They will be flattered if they bowl in conditions that suit them.
Yeah, I don't think there are many teams, are there, that are going to look at Adam Milne or Trent Boult and say that's the area we need to improve. You'd have to be pretty flipping good if you were like, that's the problem. You know,
Yeah,
we've got
we've got a Mumbai Indians opening bowler, and he's not doing it for us at the moment.
But yeah, I mean, it's yeah. Anyway, let's go on to the two matches that are coming up. Really quickly. First one is New Zealand v England, replay of the 2019 World Cup final. Ross, what are your thoughts?
Now, I just want to highlight in this bloody super chat, Mossin. We're getting some abuse in the chat, Jack, and I'm not appreciating.
I don't think it's directed at us.
Oh, it is. I'm annoyed now because you don't watch this channel to get sucked up to India, sucked up to England. We'll eviscerate anyone. We are not good cricketers, and we think we've got a much better opinion. So stay for the ride or go away. Anyway, what was the question, Jack? I wasn't listening.
England are playing New Zealand on Wednesday. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so I think that it's going to be a really tight affair. I think injuries have plagued this England side. I mean, we didn't have some of our key players before we started. Now we've lost Tamal Mills and Jason Roy, and I think they're significant blows to this lineup. Mark Wood coming in is fine, but he's not a like for like replacement in Tamal Mills, who is he is elite at the death, as his stats prove. Jason Roy is a massive loss as he sets the tempo at the top. However, I think England do have the batters to replace him. I think Tamal Mills is a bigger loss than Jason Roy is what I'm pretty much getting at there. James Vince has been brought into the squad, Jack. Do you reckon he'll come into the 11 or will it be a reschedule and a reshift
I think what they're thinking
of the batting lineup?
It's 2019. It was very close and England needed a little bit of luck to get them across the line. Now, if you wanted something for luck, what would you get?
A mascot.
A mascot. Yep. Who was the mascot for the 2019 World Cup final? It was Vincey, wasn't it? So they're like, we've had two injuries. Obviously, luck is not with us. What do we do to correct the feng shui of the England dressing room? Bring back the mascot. So that's what happened there. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that's fine. I think Bairstow goes to the top of the order for me. I think
that's what happens.
James Vince is along for the ride.
I've seen some crazy theories about David Willey doing it, but don't go full Willey.
He opens the batting in the T20 Blast, which is fine, or used to anyway. Not done it in a long time. Gives England the extra bowling.
This is, you know what this is? This is people from Yorkshire saying stuff, and we all know we're going to do a show. We'll have to do a show on this at some point. We all know that people from Yorkshire need to shut the fuck up. Like, obviously, Bairstow opens. Then you've got Butler. Keep Milan in the side because he's better than Vince, isn't he? Then everyone else, and you just add Sam Billings down the order somewhere.
Yeah, I think Sam Billings is a good option in that middle order. I think he's good against spin bowling. He's an unbelievably good fielder as well. So I think it's a good place to be for England. I think there is a bit of a loss. I think New Zealand wise, I think they've got a really good chance. They've got a settled side. They're in pretty good form. They've got pretty good role definition. I mean, they've managed to fit Devon Conway in with the gloves, and he's doing an all right job. And that means they've allowed to have kind of another bowler in the side. And I think that even with the injuries that England have sustained, to win the game, New Zealand need to chase to beat England. I think I think the toss is really important in this. I think if England are chasing, England win.
I think that's probably true. I think if New Zealand have to bat first, then I don't feel like they'll press the accelerator hard enough to get the 170 score that will put England under serious pressure. I think England chasing 175 is probably a 50-50 score, as in they get that 50% of the time. I think New Zealand will probably come in on 160 and feel really good about themselves until the power play goes for 80. I think it is quite close, though. I think New Zealand do have a serious chance. I'd say England are 55-45, maybe 60-40 at a push favourites. But New Zealand are a serious team. They're at least as good as South Africa, and South Africa just beat England. And England have got worse from that game because they don't have Jason Roy. So there are some things that are There's serious reason to believe that New Zealand could win this match. Having said that, I do think England are the favourites.
Yeah, I think it's probably fair as long as they don't play Tom Curran, as it's been raised in the chat, because he will be taken down. So I think it's going to be a really, really close game.
And then the next one, Pakistan taking on Australia. The only thing I say here is I hope Pakistan win.
Well, honestly, my first note I've got for the good of T20 cricket and the approaches or brand of cricket teams adopt in 2020 cricket moving forwards. I hope Australia lose. That's literally what I've got written down.
I really find them quite annoying as a team. It's not deep analysis, is it? I actually don't. I mean, it's not like I'm not. I don't think anyway. I don't think I'm one of those people that's obsessed by the Ashes and how England should beat Australia and how Australia are the most evil people on earth. I just really flipping hate this Aussie T20 team. I don't like the players in it. I think they've got the wrong players. The coach is a wanker. Let's be honest, he is. His own team know he's a wanker, and they call him out publicly for being a wanker. And it just rolls on, doesn't it? What they need is some comeuppance. They need to get absolutely annihilated, and I hope Afridi castles Warner and the stumps go flying off.
And impale on Matt Wade.
Impale Matt Wade in the dugout.
The dugout flows all the way through.
Any team with Matt Wade shouldn't be anywhere near an international final.
Yeah,
I'm angry. I'm still angry that they're even here. South Africa deserve to go through, and there was an extended conversation about this. But South Africa deserve to go through. The three decent teams in that group, when they played each other, I know they all beat each other. South Africa narrowly lost to Australia, narrowly beat England. England narrowly lost to Australia, and narrowly lost to South Africa and bombed Australia back into the Stone Age. There's only one team there that did a travesty in this tournament, and it's Australia. They didn't deserve to go through. You don't deserve to go through because you beat the ghost of Bangladesh and West Indies at their pre-party. It's
it was a testimonial kind of thing, wasn't it? Chris Gale gave away all his kit to the crowd. It was just like, come on, you're halfway through. He was walking off with his 15 from 9 balls, be like, I'm amazing. Yes, you are. You have been, but not that game.
Anything else about that match, or should we wrap this up? Who's going to win? We didn't say yet.
I think there's a bit of analysis I would do is that I think Australia have the bowling lineup to really restrict this Pakistan side. I think their approach is actually really. I think Zampa is a really good kind of middle overs bowler. I think up front they've got a good approach, and Babar and Rizwan will have to hit runs in the power play against them because otherwise they're going to get suffocated. Then the pressure goes on to their middle order, and as much as their middle order has been tested a little bit, it's been tested against the likes of Scotland, and I think this is where like Asif Ali, Mohammed Hafiz and Sher Malik really need to kind of come to the party, but they need a really strong foundation, and I think that's the area that if Australia are to win, that's where they have to focus on kind of turning the screw on Pakistan's top order. Yeah,
I think that's probably true. I haven't said that. I think Pakistan can afford to go slow in the power play because Stark is the serious threat. I think Zampa's decent, but I think if Babar or Rizwan make it through the power play, they'll put a decent score on the board because they're so well-rounded players, so well-rounded. It's not like, to use the very obvious other example. In this conversation, Babar Azam v Kohli, there's a big difference there in that Kohli, when he comes up against spin at the moment in T20 cricket, doesn't score off it. Like literally just does not score at an acceptable rate. Babar does, so I don't think they have to be as concerned about being a little bit behind the run rate and having to score off Adam Zampa and Glenn Maxwell and Stoinis. Now, this is the other thing with Australia. I said earlier in the tournament their approach having loads of batters and hoping for the best might work, and it kind of has worked to this point. But when you come up against good teams, they sit around and they say, hold on a minute, lads, there's going to be 4 overs of Glenn Maxwell and Stoinis coming down the spout. So anything we don't score off Mitchell Stark, we can score off them. I think you'll see a bit of a rebalance there. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I think, I also think that the Pakistan bowling lineup is brilliant. Like it's got everything that you possibly need. When Hassan Ali is your weak link, actually, you've got a pretty good bowling lineup, I think.
Yeah, right. Should we wrap this up?
Yep.
Anything else anything else in the chat that we need to read out?
Sunil, thanks for the. They reckon that England is going to win the World Cup this time. Thanks for all the super chats.
Obviously,
Mohsin, sorry for using you as an excuse to say I would eviscerate everyone. It's a tongue-in-cheek joke, and we also need to say thank you to everyone who's just signed up to be a TCP member in the chat on this one. So thanks very much, guys.
That's good.
Like this video.
Yeah, like this video.
Subscribe.
All click like now. Shit, we forgot. Bollocks. The one thing we're supposed to remember. We'll be back on Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Come on, England.